alleged sex trafficking or anything like that. Okay. He was a guy who knew everybody.
He did.
He was a guy who was connected to so many different people. Now, there's people who are like, oh, shoot, I wish I wasn't in his contact book. Having said that, you do wonder who else knew exactly what was a part of it and who else partook in it. I mean, look, Ghislaine Maxwell.
I was talking with a few guys who work out in Hollywood recently, and it was like a really refreshing perspective to hear from them and like how they were going through how people see this stuff, and they're like, yeah, there's fucked up people like Diddy. Like there's some fucked up shit. Some of the business is fucked up and the people suck. And like where that is, like put it in court 100%. But they're like, we don't like operate under the same roof and have a group chain every day. Like whose place are we going to fuck today? It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't? That's not how it works? No, there's this aspect that Hollywood's bizarre, right? Like what they're up to is bizarre. I'll give you a funny story. I'm not going to name the name, but I'll tell you a funny story. So I'm with my dad, and we're going in this elevator at this hotel. He was staying in the city. So we're going up. And in the elevator was a very, very high-profile A-list movie star, okay? I can't tell you who it was. I can't, but it was very funny. We walk in, and my dad and I look very similar. We have a radio show together, Always in Fashion. Encourage everybody to check it out. We look very similar. We walk in, and the guy goes, without breaking me, he goes, whoa, what are you two boys up to tonight? Being like, he thought I was like we were together. Like he thought that we were like some sort of couple, or like I was
and he looks like you.
Yeah, and I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, what are you guys? And I'm like, no. And I said his name. I was like, no. I was like, you've been in. I promise you. I was like, you've been in Hollywood too long. I was like, you've been in Hollywood. I was like, this is my father. It was crazy. It was crazy. And he was like, he was super embarrassed. Like that's what he immediately thought. But like. I don't know why. That's why his mind went there immediately, but that's why people think like, "Oh man, Hollywood's messed up."
It's a little weird.
It was weird. Nice guy afterwards. But it was
I love that you hit him with like the first name. No, Jim. Or
I said his name. I was like, "You've been in Hollywood way too long." He got it. I can't tell you who it is. I'll tell you off air, but I can't tell you that. Yeah.
People are gonna be upset that they're blue balls on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not one roof, and it's not one set way of doing things, but also like people, the allure of like they're different than you, they're above you, they're in this separate universe. People want to tear that down, and I get that where it's taken advantage of for sure. Obviously you've seen these cases, but you mentioned the Epstein case.
Yeah.
Did you cover a lot of that at Law and Crime?
I did. It was complicated, right? It was complicated because obviously you had her case, Ghislaine Maxwell's case. He died. And then it was civil litigation. It was like, what do we find out from the lawsuits that were filed against Ghislaine Maxwell and in the estate? And I got to tell you, when the Epstein files were released, none of it was a shocker. I mean, it wasn't bombshells. We knew a lot of this information from prior court filings.
Out.
It was already out. What was interesting was some of it put a little more context. I think the address book was interesting, but remember, you might be listed in his address book, a contact, but it doesn't mean you were involved in alleged sex trafficking or anything like that. Okay. He was a guy who knew everybody.
He did.
He was a guy who was connected to so many different people. Now, there's people who are like, oh, shoot, I wish I wasn't in his contact book. Having said that, you do wonder who else knew exactly what was a part of it and who else partook in it. I mean, look, Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of this, crimes related to the sex trafficking
to nobody.
To nobody. Now, it doesn't mean that she should be found not guilty. She should. But who else was involved in it? It's a fair question. And I don't know if we'll ever see any kind of movement on that,
We won't. There's too much. This 1,000 billion trillion %, you don't have to put it in a court of law. It is intelligence related. And so we will never ever see. And this is what was so like sinisterly brilliant about them from like an intelligence perspective. All they had to do was take a picture with you. Yeah. All they had to do.
Yeah.
Like, can we pull up? I pulled this up on podcast before. I know it's blank on me. We're talking about it, but can we pull up the picture of Elon Musk and Ghislaine Maxwell?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Elon technically, like that point that people usually don't ever loop him in with this, but like there's 0.01% of him that will always technically have to answer for this stupid fucking picture. If we pull up images right there, it's going to be the first one. Do the second one actually, because that's better, because it's the full body. And you can literally see the body language here. This is at some event.
Yeah.
And he's walking, I don't know, maybe towards the bar. I don't know what's on the other side. And a photographer who's paid to be at the event says, "Oh, Mr. Musk," and quickly stops. And he doesn't even turn all the way to the picture. But this little psycho bitch is right behind him and just leans in there like the creepy woman that she is. Yep. And now she's got him on picture.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good point. It's a good point. It's. By the way, if you go to that photo of Epstein with his hand over Ghislaine Maxwell, do you know they're selling the jacket? They're auctioning
the Epstein jacket.
They're auctioning it off.
They have it?
Yeah, they have it. They're auctioning it off. Somebody's going to buy that. Why? I have no idea. They're also auctioning off his address book too. It's like, why would you want that piece of memorabilia? But yeah, 100% agree. You create that photo, that's a contact. That's a contact. Look, when Harvey Weinstein was implicated, okay, even before the charges, like we had the New York Times piece, how many videos did you see of compilations where people are thanking Harvey, right? Like, thank you so much. You know, this is my brother, you know, thank you so much. It's like, doesn't mean they didn't know what was going on. I mean, they
they did either.
Right. You don't know. You don't know what they knew, what they didn't know, but it showed his power, his influence, how much he helped people's careers. And obviously the last thing they wanted from a PR point of view was to have to explain themselves. What did you know about Harvey Weinstein? Did you hear anything? I mean, that's not what they wanted. And that's what creates.
It doesn't. And that's the thing. Like, are there people who definitely knew? Yeah. Good luck figuring out which ones did and didn't though. Like, how many of those people were in the casting rooms with him? How many of those people talked to someone who later whispered to them, a powerful person, "Hey, you know what Harvey did to me?" The whole thing was these victims were afraid to tell anyone about it. Yeah. You know, they're not running and telling Oprah about that. And it's like we make these people guilty of things. And again, like if they were and they did know something, and fucking fry them, I'm with you. But it just it muddies the water. And to your point, like when you go through the Epstein Black Book, which I have a lot of fucking times, you know, I always find something new in there. And it doesn't, like, for example, the guy had the contact of every preeminent contractor in the New York City area. Yeah. Because he liked real estate and had a lot of fucking houses and built shit and whatever the fuck it was. Yeah. Does that mean that these contractors were building like dungeons for him?
No.
Or that any of them, more than 3 of them actually worked for him?
Right.
It doesn't. Yeah. But then when I look at page 30 and I see Robert F. Kennedy and he's got fucking whatever it was, 11 to 13 contacts in there, including his now ex-deceased wife, her maid of honor, who also happens to be Carrie Cuomo, which is just like chef's kiss right there. But like when I see that, I'm like, I don't even have 11 contacts for my parents and grandparents put together. So, you know, when he can tell me, well, we were out there doing a fossil expedition. That's why I went on the plane. But I don't am I really going to believe that?
The fact that you're asking those questions and legitimately asking those questions is the problem. And I think that was the headache that was Hollywood and politics for a while with everything that was going on with Epstein. When he was arrested, it was like, I say the same thing with Combs. Like when he was arrested, I did wonder, people, there was so there's this lawyer who filed a bunch of lawsuits on behalf of alleged victims of Sean Combs. And he said that people were already contacting him to settle lawsuits before they were sued.
That's not Busby, is it?
It is.
It is?
So I was wondering, I was like, who are these high profile people that are reaching out to you to try to settle claims before you're named in a lawsuit? How many people, when Sean Combs was arrested, are like, oh, shoot. You know, like, by the way, we don't know, and we may never know who the government spoke to in preparation of this case. They might have had interviews with celebrities that will not be called as witnesses at this case.
Why?
Because they have a fact-finding mission, right? So they might have had speak to people who will give them a piece of information that leads them then to a witness they do want to call, or that leads them to another piece of physical or digital evidence that might help their case, but doesn't mean they're going to call them. And so we don't know the scope of what was happening in the last 2 years, year and a half of an investigation. We don't know. We might never know. But it does become a question. And when you see these high profile people who are, and by the way, it also is a point of, do they mention anything? As far as I know, Ashton Kutcher, who used to be good friends with Sean Combs, hasn't said anything about him since.
I don't think he has. No.
Okay, right? J-Lo hasn't said anything about him. You don't want to say anything about him, so it becomes a PR.
Ben Affleck did. He left her.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the circumstances were, but I will say it's basically like, it's a nightmare for them. It's a headache for them about how to respond to something like this.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you're a publicist right now in Hollywood, you are. And making a lot of money.
And I never believed the idea that, Sean Combs is going to avoid criminal responsibility because he's going to name names. Oh, that was the. I was like, wait a minute. No. First of all, what they charged him with, he would never work out a deal where it didn't include significant prison time. He does not want to spend one day more in jail behind bars. Okay, so he's never going to agree to that. Number two, you just said he's the head of a criminal enterprise, a sex trafficking operation. Who else are you going to name that's bigger than him? He's the alleged head of the operation. I mean, so I never believed. Everybody's like, he's going to name names. They were like, his safety's in danger now. I was like, I don't believe it. I don't.
Here's why I think I might be with you on that.
Yeah.
Because he's a fucking moron. I mean, if there are brain cells up there, there's like 2 on a last chance power drive on the Boulevard of Broken Heroes. There's not a lot happening. This is a guy who was placed into his position when he was 23 with no chops, no understanding, and suddenly, immediately when he's placed as the head of this thing called Bad Boy Records, signs Notorious B.I.G. and is like the biggest record label executive in Hollywood. That's what made his career. If he was put there, he was a useful idiot. And this is one place like Epstein, horrible guy, but like if you really look at the case, you have to give him this as far as like what his abilities were outside the sick shit he did. He was a spy. Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.